And welcome to Spicer and Company. I'm not Sean Spicer. The last time I checked, I'm David Brody. I'm filling in for Sean Spicer.
All right, and I'm still Lindsay Keith. You don't have to worry about that. All right, but David, you know, we came back from a wonderful 4th of July weekend, a holiday weekend. We see a rise in COVID-19 and on crime. It's really sad when you're starting to see children being shot now, and then statues of Frederick Douglass being torn down. It just kind of makes you wonder what direction we're actually moving in.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's the disunited states of America. I don't think there's any question about that. So much for apple pie and Chevrolet and all of that. I mean, look, here in the nation's capital, sure, we saw some traditional fireworks light up the night sky, but those weren't the only fireworks. I mean, this was definitely not your typical 4th of July. It wasn't just social distancing. There was also plenty of political distancing as well, not to mention a bunch of mayhem. President Trump kicked off the holiday weekend with a 4th of July celebration at Mount Rushmore. If you were looking for flowery kumbaya, embracing we are the world stuff, forget about it. No apple pie in the speech. Rather, the president had a warning for far-left radicals, saying the American people would not stand idly by as they try to erase our nation's history.
Angry mobs are trying to tear down statues of our founders, deface our most sacred memorials, and unleash a wave of violent crime in our cities. They think the American people are weak and soft and submissive. But no, the American people are strong and proud, and they will not allow our country and all of its values, history, and culture to be taken from them.
Well, look, clearly the criminals in Baltimore didn't get the memo from the president, nor did they care, by the way. Their vandalism of statues continued over the weekend in Baltimore, like this Little Italy section. Protesters taking down a statue of Christopher Columbus, and then boom, into the inner harbor it goes. They're basically just drowned Christopher Columbus. In Rochester, New York, the statue of Frederick Douglass in Maplewood Park. It's a site along the Underground Railroad road where Douglass helped slaves to freedom. It was toppled and destroyed beyond repair. And then the vandals are moving beyond Jefferson Davis and Robert E. Lee now, right? Apparently, even the African-American Frederick Douglass is not safe. So, with the radical left not showing any signs of backing down, should the president double down on his message? And let me just say this real quick. The speech President Trump gave at Mount Rushmore was excellent. Actually, one of his best. It fully captured the cultural battle ahead for America. I mean, look, why sugarcoat it, right? Trump tells it like it is. And quite frankly, it's that sort of message that can be a winning one in 2020. All right, joining us now, Marc Lauder, Director of Strategic Communications for the Trump 2020 campaign. Marc, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, look, is this a message that can resonate? Because I got to tell you, taking down Christopher Columbus and Frederick Douglass, I mean, what in the world, Marc? Where are we going here? Well,
I think it is, but I think it's also a broader message. It's about jobs, it's about our country and not mob rule. And it's a contrast between two leaders. You've got Donald Trump, who's out there celebrating American history, talking about taking the difficult steps about making our country better and bringing it back. But also then you've got Joe Biden, who he's so feeble, he can't even condemn any of these things. And it's really about where do we want to go as a country. And the fact you alluded to earlier, take a look at the shootings that took place on city streets across our country. Black Lives Matter, all Black Lives Matter, including many of those who were shot and killed and children on the streets of New York and Chicago and in so many other cases. It's not something that the mainstream media is just going to give any attention to.
Marc, this is a great point. The president has tweeted about it, talking about the crime that happened this weekend, which is so unfortunate. I want to read one of his tweets where he says Chicago and New York City crime numbers are way up. 67 people shot in Chicago, 13 killed. Shootings up significantly in New York City, where people are demanding that New York Governor Cuomo and New York Mayor act now. Federal government ready, willing, and able to help if asked. You know, the president has been, his message, tough on crime. But do you think that he should change his message a little bit to be protecting the American people? Because ultimately, that's what the police are also there to do.
Well, and I think that goes with that tough on crime, law and order message of the president. And then you take a look, you've got the senator from Illinois over the weekend, who's apparently one of the top contenders to be Joe Biden's vice president. As opposed to condemning this violence and doing something long term to deal with it, she's talking about taking down the statue of George Washington. It just shows you how out of touch these radical Democrats have become, that they are more concerned about tearing down and burning American history than they are about building up our country. I think that's one of the reasons, and one of the primary reasons, why Donald Trump's going to be reelected this fall.
Marc Lauder, really appreciate you joining us. I like the subliminal messaging behind you, by the way. Way to go. Way to keep on working on that one. Thanks, Marc.
Thank you.
All right. Look, as the president pushes law and order, many on the left continue to push disorder with their calls for defunding the police. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the spike of violence over the holiday weekend proved just how necessary the police actually are. In New York City, at least 63 people shot since Friday, 10 of those fatal. Mayor de Blasio, by the way, are you listening? 39 of those shootings took place between midnight and 6:30 on a Sunday morning alone, according to police. Then in Chicago, shockingly, more violence. More than 67 people shot over the weekend, at least 13 killed, including a 7-year-old girl and a 14-year-old boy. Young children falling victim to crime in other major cities as well, by the way. Police in Washington, D.C., offering $25,000 for information in the shooting of an 11-year-old, Devon McNeil, who was killed on July 4th. All of this over the weekend, by the way. And then in Atlanta, 8-year-old Sequoia Turner was killed when the car she and her mother were in tried to drive through an illegal barricade set up by armed individuals who opened fire. Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms said police cannot be blamed for shootings like these.
Enough is enough. And you shot and killed a baby. And it wasn't one shooter, there were at least 2 shooters. An 8-year-old baby. If you want people to take us seriously, and you don't want us to lose this movement, then we can't lose each other.
Well, look, the so-called mainstream media isn't going to focus much on any of what you just saw. It doesn't fit their narrative at all. So what needs to be done to put an end to the violence? Joining us now, founder of Blue Lives Matter, Joe Imperatrice. Joe, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, Joe, look, at some point, you wonder what the police do in these situations. I mean, we saw in Baltimore specifically, there was police just kind of standing there as that Columbus statue went into the harbor. I mean, where does this put police? It's a tough position for them to be in, I would think.
Police are being villainized, and we haven't seen this since about 2014 when in New York City, detectives Ramos and Lou were executed in their vehicles. And I think we can all agree that this has nothing to do with police brutality with all the marches. The majority of shootings that are happening right now all across America, especially in New York City that nobody is talking about, is the minority community. And even individuals who live there deserve to be able to wake up and feel that they are safe. But when you take away tools like anti-crime in policing, the bulldogs, the pit bulls, the officers that went out there and took the worst of the worst out of the streets, this is what's going to happen when you have bail reform. And I'm surprised it took almost 7 months for the bad guys to turn around and start taking over the street like Gotham and Batman. When you put bad guys on the street, bad things are going to happen. When you have district attorneys standing up there and saying, we're not going to prosecute petty crimes, this is what's going to happen. And thank God that officers, especially in New York City, up until now, haven't lost their lives. But we saw the officer with the transmission that tell his family that he loves them. And if we're not putting guys behind bars that are committing the crimes, what do we expect is going to happen?
Yeah.
Joseph, we only have a little time left, but you are trying to change the narrative for the police force with Blue Lives Matter. What's the response been so far?
It's been amazing and homegrown with 3 officers from New York City in about 5 years, raised $1.5 million. None of us make a salary. And we actually released a video on Blue Lives Matter-NYC, our Facebook page. It's called I Am, because people have forgotten what police officers are all about. They have forgotten about the officers that have lost their lives in the line of duty. And I think everyone should go out there and see it because it's real officers speaking from the heart, people that are active and saying, hey, we're not the problem. We're the ones out there trying to fix things, and you're villainizing us.
Joseph, a pleasure. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right, lots more to come on Spicer&Co. The number of Americans testing positive for coronavirus continues to spike, but those numbers aren't telling you the whole story. Is the resurgence of the virus as bad as some make it out to be? We're going to talk to a panel of medical experts next. And later, the always entertaining, always informative, provocative Dick Morris on the Democrats' attempt to politicize this virus. Plus, President Trump needs the full support of evangelicals to win re-election. Is he at risk to losing some of that support to Joe Biden? Is it time for the evangelical Alka-Seltzer, if you will? Ralph Reed joins us to explain.